We are live. Hey there, hi there, ho there. Happy Wednesday. It is new June. We are going to dive in today. See that I can see your comments. How are we doing this fine day? This fine day in June. June's almost over. Can you believe it? So we are going to dive into what we like to call here New June here at Hollywood Gatekeepers. So we're going to talk about New June. Hello, hey Joy, how are you? So what's new? Long time no see. Hey guys, nice to see you. So we're going to talk about New June. This is something that we have created. Is it a thing? I don't know. An actual thing somewhere else, but we've created New June here in Hollywood Gatekeepers, where we talk about the fact that it is June. In case you didn't know, it's June, and we like to look at June as being what we call New June, like it's midsummer happens, like it's a changing of seasons, it's a changing of times. Hey, Cherie, so is it, I've asked you this before, I'm so sorry. Cherie? Can you phonetically spell that for me? It's an opportunity in June, we feel, to sort of shake the blanket and decide how we want it to be. And there he is. Hey, Doug, nice to see you. So we start, we look at June and we go, okay, the year is almost, hard to believe, half over. And typically it's like, it's sort of surprising the year's half over, and it's a little bit like, how are those New Year's resolutions working? Sherry, thank you. Hello, nice to see you. And it's Sherry, in case you were wondering, everybody. Awesome, thank you. Hey, Barbara. So we like to look, it's like, how are those New Year's resolutions working out for you at this point? Usually they're long forgotten. People don't even know they were. But this year, it's a little bit different, right? Like, it might not be that we just forgot. It might be that the whole world has changed since January. So it might be that your thing has changed, because of so many different things that are happening in this world right now. So, but still, what that's making us do here is really wanting to double down on the idea of New June and like shaking the blanket, coming back to center, like really like taking a breath. Everybody take a breath. Something I want to start doing a little bit more of that here in Hollywood Gatekeepers whenever we do these talks is like taking a second, coming together. The fact that we're here, that you're able to watch this at any time, whether you're watching it in June or some other time, or you're with us here right now today in this moment, like that you're able to connect in this way at all means that our lives are spectacular and we are very privileged and we're in this wonderful place. And so we want Hollywood Gatekeepers to be a place where you come and you pick up a few things that sort of inspire you into whatever your next step is. And especially in June, because June is, like I said, I really feel like we can use it as a time to sort of shake the blanket, decide, okay, here's how the first half of my year went. And in this particular year, could be very different. My year has gone extremely different than how I mapped it out. My 1 week vacation has turned into months. So it's one of those ideas of like, how do we take this? How do we decide based on what we want, how the second half of the year is going to go? How have we shifted? How have we changed? What are the things that we want to do? Happy Wednesday, Stella. Happy Wednesday and happy New June. So what we like to look at is June being this sort of kind of like, well, and it ends up being in December. It ends up being sort of that last week after the holiday rush and everything. And then there's just sort of this week from, those last like December 28th through New Year's, where you have this like sort of energy of the new year. We'd like to try to build that here in this next coming week of like, we've got one more week of June. And then next week at this time, it'll be the 1st of July, which we like to think of as happy half new year. So the 1st of July is coming. That's the new year, the new second half of your year. Let's look at it that way and let's take it as, okay, let's reset, let's reframe, let's relook, let's, make the 1st of July the first day of the second half of the year. And so we're going to do a countdown and have fun with it. Hola, and have fun with it within, Hollywood Gatekeepers. And that's something we created. I've never seen it anywhere else. I share it as much as possible. And I'm always like sharing it. I know that some of my entrepreneur friends who have their own businesses, they do it now too, because I'm like, take it. It's awesome. The more, I would love if that became a thing, right? Like share it with your friends. Have it be something maybe with your, the New Year is next week. Let's go on a date on Happy Half New Year or whatever. Let's count it down. Let's whatever it might be. Yes, drink champagne. I highly, highly recommend that you drink champagne on Happy Half New Year. Count it in. Be like, this is, this is the thing that's going to reset. And I honestly think in some ways it's even more important than the New Year, because the New Year, everybody's in that. I love the collective energy of the New Year, don't get me wrong, but we really need it, right? Especially right now this year, we really need it. And in general, we really need it. And no one's in that frame of mind. And so it can be this way of, now you're coming into summer months, and even though things are different, like we'll be coming into, summer's just a different kind of energy. And can we maintain this energy of the things that we want? And so we also thought we would use this as an opportunity to sort of talk to the writers in the room that want or are writing screenplays. And so we thought we would give you just 10 quick things. We have a handout. Here is the link to the handout. The link, actually, I have to create it, I think. Let me look. Not have it. Okay. So I got this. Hold on. There it is. So there is the link to the handout. And Joy, if you could toss that into the chat. You will see when you get to that page, it's all kinds of videos and handouts about writing screenplays. So you might want to check that out. And you'll notice that you need to enter your name and email when you get it, but that's so that we can follow to see what people click on and what you want, so we can create more materials for what you want. So there's a lot of handouts on that page, a lot of things about writing your screenplay. And we also come from the perspective of writing a screenplay that a reader will love, writing a screenplay that will get into the hands of a producer because it will get past the reader. That's always what we're how we're coming at it, is from a reader's perspective. And so that makes it so that we can share it with you. So, yay. I'm so happy that you like it. Thanks, Rachel. Yeah, I think it's really fun. And I think you can use these. Yay, I love it. I love it too. Whoopee. So there's Joy sharing the link. It's in the chat now. So just you can download that. We're going to go through just 10 things that will help you get started with your screenplay. So if you want to write a screenplay, now's the time. Let's get her done. Let's get it going. You've got a half a year still left to go. You can write a screenplay in 6 months. Come on. I know you can, because we have a group called Finished, and they are finishing their screenplays. People are writing their first screenplay, and I'm seeing some of them here, actually. Some of them are here. They've been writing their screenplays. No such thing as late. Hello. Hi. Good to see you. Writing a screenplay a reader will love. Yeah, you come and go here whenever you want. Like, you're a grown adult. There's no late. No, I mean, I guess there's early. But we just want you to get as much support and information as you can. So let's take a look-see. So if you have the handout, awesome. Let's take a look-see at it, and I will share it on my screen here so that y'all can see it. Share screen. Share screen. Do you do that on your computer? Do you have to talk out loud your way through? Whoa, that's not the one. Hold on. Try that again. Stop share. Oh, I know why. Hold on. So I'm like living proof. Chrome tab, that's what I want. That you don't have to be tech savvy to be a reader. Okay, now you can see it, right? Yeah, there we go. There it is. We got it. We're on it. Awesome. Plenty of time to complete your script. Absolutely. Oh, here's the greatest quote ever. And she did, and it's spectacular, and we've read it, and it's awesome. So she finished it in 6 months, and she's the queen of procrastination. So I guess she's saying if she can do it, anyone can. And she did a beautiful job with it. So if you're trying to think, well, maybe I would write a screenplay, maybe I will, or maybe I've always wanted to. And a lot of people, we get this a lot, they just don't know what to write about. What do I write about? Where do I get some ideas? So this is going to walk you through a few things just to get you started on that idea. So first of all, what do you love? Like, what gets your heart pumping? Start with a genre. If that's a really good way to sort of get your wheels turning, you really, really, really look at the things that you love. Really, really like focus in on what are the things that, light you up, because you are going to be spending some time with this. So if you're writing in a genre that you don't like, it's going to be excruciating. So, and once you start getting assignments, sometimes you will write in a genre that maybe particularly isn't your genre. But to get started, what lights you up? What movies do you love? Pick a genre that you love and just start writing in that genre. And then once you have a genre, you can start coming up. The number two thing is start coming up with some log lines. And just log lines are the sentence that say what the story's about. So when you're flipping through the channels and you see that little description of what you're about to watch, that's a log line. So, and this isn't, and as I say, like create a log line. This might not necessarily be the log line that you will use when the script is done and you're telling people about it, but it's just to kind of get you started. So, and I would write more than one, write several, and write as many as you can. Just crank out some log lines. Just spend, an hour or whatever and just, put some music on or whatever and just relax and just start cranking out log lines. And it's really funny because the first few usually are pretty they're gelled and you sort of know it, and then it'll get harder and then you'll get to some gold. So it's like stick in there with it, like really stick in there, write some log lines. You'll be amazed at kind of things that you'll come up with if you just go there. And if you're even writing on a screenplay and you're having trouble, stop for a second and write some log lines. Log lines are a really good kind of unblocker that's been my experience and been from what I've seen from other people as well. So Brittany's written 2 screenplays. Awesome. So good. I'm really proud that you did that too. There's a little fist bump for you. Such a goof. Yeah, it's a great book. Save the Cat is a good one. Absolutely. So as you're writing your log lines, one of them hopefully will stick, and then you can start writing that particular story. Now, when it comes to story, there's a couple different ways you can go in terms of getting yourself started. So we have them in a certain order, but I'm going to go off the order of the list. Yes, so Vanessa, you'll see if you just go to here, there's the link. It's in the chat, and you should be able to click on it in the chat, and it will take you to the handout. So definitely just stick this on your computer or whatever, print it out, maybe even write on it, like make it yours every week. And you'll see when you get to the page where the handout is, there are other handouts. Every picture is a handout. So you can just start a notebook, get yourself going. That should be one of the bullet points. So if you start by kind of knowing who you want to write about, whose story is this going to be, it's for one of the main things in a screenplay is if you can't identify whose story it is, then there's some problems with the screenplay. That's one of the things that readers will look for, is making sure that we know whose story it is. So I highly recommend you get to know your protagonist. It's your new BFF. It's your new invisible friend. It's your new, your friend that you're going to carry around in your pocket. It's the person that you're going to have conversations with. Get to know your protagonist like they're in your lives. Have conversations. Think about how would they think about this meal that I'm eating right now. Like really make them present to your everyday. And when you do that and you carry, and we've talked about voices in your head. We've talked about inviting everybody to the dinner table. We've been through Myers-Briggs. We've done a lot of things with what you can do with characters. Know your main character. When you just invite them into your daily life and you start thinking about how they would be responding to situations, you'll start to get to know them. They'll be far easier to write. Sometimes you can also cast someone that you admire or has a really strong voice maybe, and it doesn't even necessarily mean that you're writing it for that person. So sometimes you might even cast, you might cast someone like Raul Julia, who's not even on this planet anymore. He is in my heart. But cast him because he still has a really strong voice. So it doesn't necessarily have to be even someone who's alive or someone you could cast a younger version of an actor you could cast the 1980s Mel Gibson in something. You can use actors, and so it doesn't necessarily mean you're just doing that to find a voice. So you can cast actors that have a really strong voice from whatever age your character is. It doesn't have to be I'm writing this for this actor, but you can use actors in that way where you cast them in your screenplay and they can be the voice of that screenplay. So that will really help you kind of find who they are. And then once you're starting to get your story, there's kind of two very basic. There's a lot of ways. There's a lot of books out there. There's a lot of ways that you can use these tools. There's I love that you're reading Save the Cat. I love, I'm glad you're liking the document. Awesome. I'm glad, see, so good. Here's an example. She's a nicey Nash. She's a hoot. That's so good, right? So like when they make them come to life like that, right? It really makes a difference. So now there's all these Michael Haig. I love. He's got like a 5-point system of writing. Some people are very structured on that 3-act. The hero's journey is kind of where it all began. Like we could go back into Socrates. There's so many different ways of storytelling. Find the one that works for you. I'm going to give you kind of 2 basic sort of ways that people write stories. One is, so she cast Mary, the Mary. Yes, Mary you're thinking of. I don't know if you're thinking of the Mary, but Natalie Portman, yeah, totally can see that. So it's like really, and she has a really strong voice in the screenplay, I have to say. I've read it. So some people like to use, I've had this hand hanging out. There's a reason. Some people like to use an outline, very succinct, very, I'm going to put, this is going to happen, then this, then this, then this. If that works for you, absolutely. Some people just like to go and they just follow their protagonist and they just freeform it. That's also possible. When you have a partner, usually an outline is a little better, so you're on the same page, so to speak. She does cry very well, that's true. And then some people do more of a free form, and this could be a way, if you know your protagonist really well, you can just start writing scenes, and you write scenes and then you write on a Post-it note or a 3x5 card, kind of the gist of that scene, who's in it, what happened. And then you can take those 3x5 cards, literally throw them up in the air, pick them up, see, hey, how did they lay out? And see, does that make sense? Pretty soon scenes will come together. You can start moving them around. It's a far more, obviously, like out there creative thing. A lot of writers, I actually just went to a panel that had a lot of Oscar-winning writers, and they all kind of said, some of them had a system in general, but they all said kind of depends on the project. Sometimes they put an outline together and sometimes they don't. And some of them were very rigid, and once they get their system going, they use that system. Some of them were all over the place. So it really is like, it doesn't even matter like how far down this path you go. Sometimes the process will change based on the deadline. Sometimes the process will change based on who's involved in the project. There's so many different ways. So find, what works for you. Those are just a couple of suggestions of how you can get your story going. And then you can also look in public domain. So public domain stories are things that were written so long ago that you don't have to get the rights for them. Snow White, I often use that example, such a good example of that, because you have Snow White and the 7 Grumpy and all them. You got that version of Snow White, and you have the Huntsman, which is also a version of Snow White. Very different, right? Because Disney does not own the rights to Snow White the story. They own the rights to the 7 Dwarves. But it's like you can tell a story in a very different way. And there's a lot of public domain stories that you can go back and grab. You can tell historical things that happened, and if they happened long enough ago, you don't have to worry about the rights to things. So there's so many ways that you can go with that. You can also take a, so you can see this. You can you can take a character, and this is one of my favorite ways of writing, is to take a character. It's not working. Maybe refresh and try again, because I've tested it several. Is anybody else having trouble with the link? Yeah, the Bible, that's a really good one. No copyrights on that one either, right? And there's so many great stories there. Like, that's a wealth of stories. Any books that were written like that, there's so many different ways that you can interpret stories from the Bible and stories from books that were written, centuries and centuries ago. So let me put the link back up so we all can see it. There it is. So you can also take, so let's say you take a story, you can take a supporting character from the story and then tell the story from that perspective. This is one of my favorite ways to get inspired. So you can take a famous story, you can take Indiana Jones and maybe tell it from the version of one of the Nazis. And how they're conflicted and whatever it might be, and who is this indie guy, and you can go off on a whole thing down that. So you can take that, and then you wouldn't necessarily be referring to Indiana Jones, because then you'd need the rights to Indiana Jones. But it could be some adventurer that comes in and messes things up or whatever. Like, you can take a character out of a story and then create something else, and then not necessarily use that original story, if you know what I'm saying. So, or you can take like Tom Stoppard beautifully did with Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, took 2 bit parts out of Hamlet and wrote a full-on play about them. and movie, I think. So you can take the guard out of A Few Good Men. What was their take on this whole scenario? You know, it's like, what was the mother of the kid that died? What happened there? How did she take all of this? Like, there's so many ways that then you can use another story that you love and you know these characters and you can jump off just so that you can jump off. Of course, you don't want to plagiarize anything, but it is a way, it's just a way that you can tap in and get some ideas for stories. I love this concept because then you're writing within a voice that you love already. You're writing within a genre that makes sense to you. You already kind of know the backstory of what's happening in the story, and you could just continue that out another layer. And so that is a really wealth of things that not too many people do. And I used to say, take a stormtrooper out of Star Wars, which then they did. So it's like, that is a way that you can kind of look at stories. You can take characters from different stories. We actually do this as an exercise in screen readers, so people can see the importance of dialogue. And we have people write scenes where they're taking, you know, Indiana Jones has a scene with Mary Poppins, so that you're taking these iconic voices and putting them together. And then you can do that and then just take those names off. And you have very specific characters right in your head. And you start writing them and it becomes like, oh, and that's my favorite exercise by far that we have in screen readers. And we're actually going to publish the book of scenes because they're so hilarious. And so when you take Scarlett out of Gone with the Wind and you put her in a scene with Neo from the Matrix, right? Like suddenly it's like, oh, and you have conflict and you have all these things. And then you take those names off and you kind of flush out the characters into something a little more. But it gives you this opportunity, it will inspire you, right? It'll give you an opportunity to mix it up a little bit. And so these are ways that you can really, really like nurture voices, find a way of jumping off part, really, really, yeah. Yeah, and they're starting, so that's a good point, Anna. She's like saying, you know, Pride and Prejudice and zombies, actually. I liked. They're starting to mix genres even more like this. This isn't necessarily, it is to some degree mixing genres. That is something that you can do to kind of get it's difficult though. So if it's your first screenplay, I'd recommend picking one. But it is by pulling characters out of different genres and putting it into your thing, it can really create a really interesting kind of idea. Also, fish out of water stories are a really good place to start. And that's kind of what we've been talking about, where if you take an iconic type of person and you put them somewhere they don't belong, it can really just help inspire a story. So if you take, you know, I mean, I always use I don't know why I use poor Queen of England, but if you take someone that's very iconic and you put them in a situation where they're not going to understand or have any idea what's going on, it's going to just naturally create conflict, naturally create a learning curve, naturally create a character arc. Like fish out of water stories are one of the easier stories to write because it gives you a parameter to work with. So when you start with, you know, I'm trying to think of an example. So we have, you know, alien stories are always good because it's an alien and they have to learn Encino Man, fish out of water, splash, literally fish out of water. But so you've got the idea of how they're learning their new environment. And so that gives you just something to write about, kind of can get you started. Hey, Elizabeth, nice to see you. So that can be those are just some ideas just to get your creative juices flowing. That's super important. The other element that is really important are the last three that we're going to talk about, and that is stepping into the self that you are a writer, owning it, being it. When people ask what you do, you're a writer. I don't care if you worked 50 hours in some job. If you're a writer and you want to write, you're a writer. Even if you're doing something else, you're writing, you're here right now. So if you're a reader, you're also a writer. And these, if you're a writer and you're working with a script and you're helping a producer and the script is stuck, some of these ideas about pulling characters from places and moving things around, that can help a screenplay. Some of these you can use if you're a reader and you're helping a writer get their screenplay in shape. These are ways you can help motivate that writer. If you're a coach and you're writing, you're coaching a writer, feel free to use these to help get that writer so that they can get the creative thing that they're trying to get to out on the page, but really owning that that's who you are, not just what you do, it's who you are. You're a writer. You're going to keep writing. You're not going to write one thing and then that's your baby. It's not a baby. It's a screenplay. It's not a living being. Like, it's one of my pet peeves. It's my baby. No, it's not. It's a screenplay. Move along. write your screenplay, then write another one, then write another one, then write another one. You're a writer. Own it, Rona, own it, write. It's my soapbox for the day. Get a t-shirt. I'm a writer. Final draft, or the writer store has a hat that says writer. I love that. It's like simple. It's who you are. It's what you do. Let's do it. So really owning that. Now, this might be something that when you do this in your world that you're in, your daily life, you might get some flack for that. You might get some negative feedback from the folks in your life. It's possible. I've had several times where it's said, I was thinking about writing about, and then someone, oh, because I don't know. It's a weird thing. Sometimes when you double down on the fact that you're a writer, people will be like, oh, right, I've always wanted to write too. Like they think that, but it's different. You're different. You're actually a writer, and you're going to be writing every day. And the more that you just own that, and if you're having anybody in your circle of friends that's giving you any kind of flack, or you're not getting support from your family or whatever, that's why we're here. You can come in here. I'm going to call you a writer all day long, because that's what you are if you're here. You're some sort of writer. You're a reader. You're a writer. Like, we're all in this together. So go to places, get in more Facebook groups, get in things where you hear the constant thing of what writers say. You hear the vernacular where it's not crazy to have that dream. You hear people constantly talking about movies and writing. So when you start to surround yourself with people that speak your language, when you develop this tribe, we get it. We're extroverted introverts in here. It's like we really want to write about people, but we just really hate people. I think it's like something that I see and hear a lot. It's like, you're here. This is your tribe. We are going to support you. We are going to back you up. You are that thing. So if you find, and if there's people that are toxic, that's a whole nother, we have that topic too sometimes. That's a whole nother thing of like, how do you deal with people that are toxic in your life? I have a coach, and she has a beautiful perspective on it where well, for one, you don't need to have like your significant other, your spouse doesn't need to be all things to you. Maybe they're not the person that you bounce your screenplay idea off. If you find that you're getting a shut door there, maybe that's actually hurting that relationship, and you don't need to go to them for that. You can come here for that. Like, to be able to look at relationships and understand that not everybody is everything. And so you have friends like that already, think about it. When you know you're feeling this way, you want to go to that person. When you know you want to go celebrate this thing, you immediately think of that person, right? It's like people don't have to be all things to you. And sometimes in your personal relationships, you want to be around that person just enough to where you always really like each other. And there's no reason why you have to be together like all the time. You can have ebb and flow in relationships, even with spouses. You can find ways to have things that you do aside and things that you do together. It doesn't have to be this like, you must all accept me as this thing. You know you're that thing. You don't need them to tell you you're that thing. You can come here, I'll tell you you're that thing. You are a writer. You don't need everybody else to validate that for you. Just do it. Just be a writer, own it, do it, beat it. Find your tribe that speaks your language, so when you are feeling needy or you need a little bit of that, you can go into one of your tribes and you can kind of get that. So really like, it's so good. Oh, so true, right? It is like, you will find people that, and then well, that's not the person I'm going to talk to about my screenplay. And that's okay. They can be the person that you talk to about some other thing that you love. And then that relationship flourishes. It doesn't have to be, they don't have to tell you, oh, I misunderstood. You're a writer. If they don't see it, that's on them, whatever. Move on. That can be something else. So, and that's why we're here. Keep coming back. We'll keep supporting you. We'll keep giving you the kudos, whatever you need to get it done. So finding that tribe, really like listening, reading. I love that you're reading books like Save the Cat. It's a great place to start. Listening to podcasts, listening to things, hearing the language of it, of writing, hearing the language of writers, like being around it. If you're feeling that need, there's plenty of places. We're so lucky right now. There's so many places to reach out for resources. So definitely do that. And then the really big, here's the secret. I'll be that for you, Sherry, now that I can say your name correctly. It is true though. It's so true. It's like, that's why we're here. And you all inspire me in the same exact way. I can't even tell you how many times I'm like, oh, I gotta share that with them. Oh, they're gonna love, like, you guys are like, and everybody's a little bit different. Like, and I'm starting to get to know so many different people, and it's so much fun, right? We're having so much fun. So it's a constant give and take. I really don't even feel like we're teaching, we're learning as much as we're giving. It's like such a give and take. So the big secret that all writers have, the big secret that's going to get it happening. Yeah, absolutely, Brittany. I totally get this. So you can get down on yourself. You don't want to write every day. And then you're like, I'm not a writer, but I do like to write. So this is, said the woman who just wrote 2 screenplays, but I'm not a writer. Yeah, that was my own inner voice. That's what it sounds like. I don't know why. So it is like amazing what we do to ourselves, right? So then we can come back in here and laugh about it. It's totally like, yeah, that's the journey. Enjoy it. So the big secret thing, I keep saying the secret thing and then I get sidetracked. The secret thing, here's the big secret, even if you can see the handout, the big secret that all writers, all Oscar writers, Oscar winners, everyone who has a screenplay that's been done, they have this one thing that they all do, they all have in common. And if you just do this thing, they write. They write. They write. Yeah. It's like, just write. Just keep writing. Some of it's going to totally stink. Some of it's going to be genius. The more you do it, the better it will be. It's like anything. Yeah, you can share your screenplays with your friends or not, whatever. Exactly. You have to remember what you've done. Exactly. And we actually have a system where we do Map Out Monday, where we map out what we're going to be doing. And then look back Friday. On Friday, look back just weekly. Wow, what did I do this week? And some days, maybe you didn't do that much. Doesn't matter. But it's a way of, because usually you did something. Something shifted, something happened, something moved. Even if it's just a conversation that you had that's going to make your life better. Or even if it was something really hard that you went through it and you're on Friday and you survived. So whether you had a good week, a bad week, you can do it daily. Whether yesterday was awesome, I journal every day and I write 3 things that were great that happened yesterday. You know, it's like 3 things new things every single day that I'm grateful for, new things. So that means I'm always looking, because it's easy at first, but once you get through those kind of things that you're generally grateful for, then it becomes harder. So if you're always looking for new things, I also write what moved me forward today, like what's moving me forward and what will move me forward tomorrow. And then the next day I write, was I right? You know, it's like, so you can kind of look back and look forward and be present to the daily journey. And the more that you can do that with your writing, the more that you can look back on what you've done, it'll help move you forward. The more that you can celebrate and then look back, maybe I didn't do what I wanted this week, but I got through it. I'm here today. I've survived it. 100% survival rate. Here we are. So what's going to be the next step of moving forward to the next thing? That to me is what New June represents. That's what Happy Half New Year represents. Next week when we meet, it'll be the first day of the second half of the year, and we're going to celebrate that. And we're going to have, back at you. Right back at you, flower. I got you. So let's celebrate Happy Half New Year next Wednesday. Have a beautiful last week of the first half of 2020. As much as we want to go, the lessons that are happening right now, the conscious shifts that are taking place, it gives me there's so many beautiful things. There's so many awful things. There's so many, life is beautiful, awful, messy, wonderful. And we're learning as a collective, conscious collective. We're learning as individuals. We're all growing. We all survived. Anyone that's listening to this right now, you got to this place. So let's really, really, really come together next week. Have a wonderful last week of the first half. Celebrate that we've survived 2020 and that we're learning lessons from it and hopefully becoming a better collective society. All right. We will see you on Happy Half New Year. Have a great week, you guys.